Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the incredible history, culture, and profound social impact of the Black church in America. This is a fascinating journey that's really going to shift how we understand its vital role in shaping society, preserving culture, and sparking massive movements.
Here is our quick roadmap for today. 1. Forging new denominations. 2. A refuge and surrogate nation. 3. Shaping culture and leadership. 4. Preserving the revivalist spirit. And 5. Sectarian appeals.
All right, let's get into Section 1, Forging New Denominations.
Our story really anchors on Richard Allen. Back in 1793, this dedicated lay leader started Bethel Church in Philadelphia. And the reason why is so important: Black worshipers desperately needed a dedicated space of their own, completely free from the strict, suffocating racial hierarchies of traditional congregations.
What started as individual local congregations pretty much spread like wildfire into full-fledged independent denominations. By 1814, Bethel evolved into the African Methodist Episcopal, or AME Church. Soon after that, in 1821, the AME Zion Church formed in New York. And then, following the Civil War, the Colored Methodist Episcopal Church took root in the South around 1870.
And the success of this push for independence, honestly, it was staggering. 350,000. By 1900, the AME Zion Church alone had over 350,000 members. This explosive growth was really fueled by missions among freedmen moving north after the Civil War, who were actively seeking out spiritual support and community.
Meanwhile, the Baptists were carving out their own spaces too. In 1866, the Colored Primitive Baptist Church was formed. Now that word primitive, it definitely wasn't an insult. It literally meant they were deliberately modeling themselves directly on the practices of the early Christian church, going right back to the very roots of the faith.
You know, the Baptists actually structured themselves a bit differently than the Methodists. They built from the ground up. It started with autonomous, independent local churches, which then merged into regional or state conventions. Ultimately, this massive grassroots movement culminated in the National Baptist Convention in 1895, which, by the way, remains a vital institution today.
Moving right along to Section 2, a refuge and surrogate nation.
Because the absolute horrors of slavery had systematically shattered biological families and systemic racism continuously blocked any real participation in the nation, the church stepped in to fill an enormous void. It became a powerful surrogate nationality and a primary family. For people who had lost absolutely everything, this is where they finally belonged.
So the church was way more than just a spiritual center. It was this incredible economic and social engine. It fostered economic cooperation, funded institutions like Wilberforce University way back in 1856, and even published America's first Black magazine. Crucially, it acted as a literal, physical fortress. During the Civil Rights Movement, these were the buildings that protected leaders, doors locked, shutters drawn, shielding the community from the mobs raging just outside.
Section 3. Shaping Culture and Leadership.
Think about this. With leadership roles in white-dominated businesses, education, or politics effectively closed off, brilliant minds had to find another avenue to develop their talents. Legends like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. forged their incredible speaking, organizational, and leadership skills directly from the pulpit. The church was literally the ultimate training ground for social and political influence. And this environment fostered a uniquely joyful, expressive, and deeply rooted religious experience. We're talking powerful Negro spirituals, profound hymns, and super dynamic worship, complete with expressive dance. It actively kept Black history and culture alive, exactly when the broader society was doing everything it could to suppress it.
This experience also birthed what we call Black theology. It's this brilliant approach of taking key biblical themes, like salvation or the kingdom of God, and interpreting them through the specific lens of the Black Christian experience. For instance, they took the Old Testament story of the Hebrews escaping slavery and used it as a direct mirror for the Black American journey toward freedom.
On to Section 4, Preserving the Revivalist Spirit.
Academics actually point out that the Black church successfully maintained the very heart of the American revivalist movement. They did this through 4 key pillars: a real sense of divine immediacy, meaning God is right here, right now, a beautiful spontaneity of individual response, a strong emphasis on personal holiness, and crucially, a fierce demand to fix present societal injustices. They perfectly blended deeply personal spirituality with a loud call for justice in an unjust world.
Finally, Section 5, Sectarian Appeals.
But what about those who felt totally disconnected? This profound alienation created a huge vacuum in urban centers, especially up north after the Civil War. For many marginalized folks, the traditional church felt like part of the problem rather than the solution, and that vacuum opened the door for new, radical sectarian movements to step in and offer alternative, tightly knit communities.
To fill that urban void, two radically different groups popped up in the Northeast, each offering a totally unique appeal to marginalized communities. Let's compare them. First up, Charles Taze Russell. He founded the group we now know as Jehovah's Witnesses back in 1872 in New York. He offered a strongly apocalyptic message. To people who felt completely rejected by society, the idea that the current, unjust world was rapidly coming to an end resonated on a really deep level.
The psychological pull here was incredibly strong. The message was basically, hey, if mainstream society and traditional churches reject you, you can instead join the ultimate righteous remnant. You are invited to be part of God's chosen few, the true believers.
Now contrast that with George Baker, better known as Father Divine. He started a radically different movement in 1880s Philly. His angle? Well, he literally claimed to be God incarnate on earth, bringing divine presence directly to the streets.
Father Divine offered a strict communitarian lifestyle. We're talking pooled resources, living together in shared housing, and absolute submission to his authority. It was an appeal to completely separate from the broader, hostile culture that had systematically rejected them. It provided immediate physical and economic security in exchange for total devotion.
As we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a thought to chew on. Given its historic role as a surrogate nation, a physical refuge, and the primary incubator for massive societal change, how will the incredible legacy and blueprint of the Black Church continue to shift the foundations of our future? How will it shape the social and political landscapes of tomorrow? Thank you so much for exploring this with me today, and keep asking the big questions.